Hello and welcome to another episode of the Duct Tape Marketing Podcast. This is John Chance, and my guest today is Jenn Herman. She is a social media consultant, speaker, and globally recognized Instagram expert. She's a sought-after and international speaker, providing tips, resources, and training for organizations of all sizes that need to structure their social media strategies. She's the co-author of including one we're going to talk about today, Instagram for Dummies 2.0, the 2022 edition. So, Jenn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So a lot of times when authors come back on, I just had Anne Hanley on for her last, everyone writes, new edition. And so it's a very legitimate question to say, okay, what's new in the book, or why did you feel like you needed a new edition? I imagine on these social media books, it's like before the ink is dry, you need a new edition, isn't it?
Absolutely. Like literally we'll submit everything. And then when the technical editor gets to it, they're like, this screenshot's out of date. And we're like, oh my gosh, we just submitted that a month ago. So yeah, there's always a reason to update it. The evergreen strategies don't change, but obviously screenshots and the nuanced how-tos can evolve so quickly.
The interface, I mean, they change and they move stuff around. And so no question. I know it can be maddening sometimes. I feel like every time, I don't really go to Facebook ad platform very often, but I feel like every time I go there, I'm like, wait a minute, where's that now? It's tough to keep up. Good for authors, I guess, right? Edition 3 is probably in the works, right?
We're trying to pump the brakes a little bit, but yeah, probably in a couple months we'll start working on edition 3 of the business version. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Dummies brand is owned by Wiley, been around for quite a while, hundreds and hundreds of titles and a number of titles for them. What's your experience like with that? I mean, I know a lot of people, it's tongue in cheek, right? I'm such a dummy at this, but do you ever get any pushback from people saying, well, that doesn't feel very professional?
I don't so much get pushback. I think just because the brand is so recognized for,
Right.
the fact that it is a very diligent how-to. Most people, the question is, well, I'm not a beginner. Is the book relevant for me? A lot of people feel like it's not something they need because they're not a dummy. They're not at that beginner level. Yeah. But these books go through so much detail that even the most advanced users will get tips out of it that they wouldn't necessarily be familiar with.
Yeah. So this is a hard question, so I'll just see where you go with it. Where does Instagram sit these days, like in the pantheon of social media, like hierarchy?
I mean, it's at the top. It's near there. When you look at the top performing, top used apps, you've got Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, TikTok is up there now. Obviously, YouTube. But Meta owns, those top platforms between Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. So it's definitely still popular. It's still popular with the younger demographic, even though they are shifting towards more TikTok. But it's popular with that older demographic. So they've got the breadth that, I always tell people, your audience is there. How many of them are there is up for question, but your audience is on Instagram. It's one of the most used platforms.
So how, when somebody comes to you and says, should I be on Instagram or TikTok? You mentioned TikTok already. It's kind of seems to be the hot child of the moment even for advertisers, but certainly for organic as well. So how would you compare and contrast those two platforms?
I mean, in general, Instagram still has other means of communicating. You can still do photos, carousels. You've got the DMs and the Instagram stories. So you've got more variety of content. TikTok is very much vertical, short form, 15 to kind of 60-second videos. If you don't want to do short form video, you don't want to be on TikTok. There is that limitation with TikTok that it is only one form of communication. But if your target audience is under the age of 30, you probably want to be on TikTok. So those are kind of probably the two biggest differentiators. Other than that, it's just preference.
So you started to allude to this, that, people look at the Dummies title and they think, oh, it's just for beginners, but you really go the whole, breadth. But I mean, those Dummies books do, like, how do I create an Instagram account? So if you're talking to somebody that maybe is past that, how do you advise them to use the book?
Well, this new version is very heavy on Instagram Reels, which is that short form video format.
Yeah.
So if someone is advanced with Instagram, loves Instagram, has, been using it for a long time, but they haven't embraced Reels, this is the book to get because it's going to walk you through all aspects of the how-tos, the strategy, when to use them, how often to use them. So for this book, it's definitely that focus on Instagram Reels. And if someone has that learning curve, this is that solution for them.
So that was really my next question was let's do a format overview of Instagram. Started out, you could post a picture. Now there
Yep.
are many formats, for media. So talk a little bit about maybe just describe them, but then maybe a quick hit on like you ought to be using this one here or this one there or this is best for X.
Yeah, so there's still that traditional photo, right? A good old fashioned square photo is still the kind of standard what we think of Instagram. Of course, now you can do their portrait or landscape photos as well. Carousels are a big shift. That was one of my big tips for 2022, and it still is for 2023. And a carousel is where you can have anywhere from 1 to 10 photos and or videos, and you scroll through in that kind of horizontal sequence. And that is definitely an opportunity for additional exposure. It's an opportunity to put more content in one post. So you're not overwhelming your audience with 10 photos in 10 separate posts. You can put it all in one. Those are very powerful and tend to get some of the best performance for reach and engagement. Then, of course, we have stories, which are kind of, again, that short form. Those are the short-lived 24-hour content. It can be photos, videos, or text-based. And for most brands, for most businesses, most conversions come from stories. It's kind of surprising. Not everyone will get that same result. But a lot of people like that story format. And it tends to be where we, let our hair down and we tend to be a little less polished. We worry about a filter rather than actually putting our makeup on. Whereas the feed posts tend to be heavily curated. They tend to be more, oh, they live there forever. It's got to be a good post. Whereas our stories tend to be more casual. And so we get a better interaction with that person on the other end of the phone. So we tend to get better conversions, more direct message responses, more engagement in a personalized way. So stories are very powerful for that. Everyone has link stickers now, so anyone can put a sticker to any link destination on a story, which is again great for that conversion level, getting people to whether it's an opt-in, watching a video, those things. And then, of course, we get into Reels. And Reels is this weird mix hybrid of the feed and stories. It's kind of this weird in the middle thing. So it's long or it's full screen 9:16 video. It's still short form. So it's that 15 to 90 second video, but they live on the feed. So they don't disappear after 24 hours. And this is what we think of with the, TikTok type videos. You get those transitions. Right. It's, the dancing or the pop-up text and those things. Most people, Reels are really, really good for exposure. These are really good when you want new people to find your content, find your brand. For most brands, Reels are not ideal for conversions. Most people are looking at Reels and they're in a swipe mode. They want the entertainment, they want the information. They're not likely to leave that scroll and go somewhere else. So they're great for the super, super top of funnel. You want to come down lower for those conversions with the feed posts or the stories.
Yeah, it's funny. I've noticed after being on it for years that, my static images don't get near the interaction that, that stories get. It's just, and I sometimes kind of wonder about that too. And maybe you alluded to that, but like even know like my kids, they don't post pictures anymore. It's all stories, even though it probably is just a picture that's half the time that's in stories. So, what are you, is it really how people are consuming reason for that?
I think it's a combination of factors. I think part of it is just that consumption. People have moved towards that kind of that vertical feed, that short form content. We're conditioned to these short attention spans. They don't want to read as much, and a story is a quick moving, they're just doing it when they're standing in line. They're doing it when they're waiting at, pick up with their kids from school or, at Starbucks, whatever it is. And they just want that quick endorphin boost of content. They're not looking to actually stop and consume by reading a caption, by watching a long video. And so stories tie into that. Not saying that longer form content isn't valuable. It's just when your audience is consuming it. So feed posts definitely have seen a decrease in reach and performance, but they are still that long form content. That's the content that when someone finds you, tomorrow, they're not going to see your story from a week ago or a month ago, but they are going to see those feed posts. That's going to be their real life introduction to your brand, your story, and your services and products. So it's still important to have those long term.
And I'm also seeing a trend in feed posts of you mentioned it already, long form content. I mean, that people are writing what we might have thought of as a blog post, now in social media. So is that is that how you get more? So that when you do stop somebody on that, now there's something that they really can consume and dig in, and that's when you're going to get the long term exposure.
Yeah, it's definitely been a shift in that direction. You can still get away with a short one paragraph, but you get 2,200 characters, not words, 2,200 characters on an Instagram post. And I have been known to max those out on more than one occasion. And it becomes a microblog. It becomes that tip, that tutorial, that resource-based information. And those are the posts that get a lot of saves. Those are the ones where people are saving that to come back and review that information. It's not going to be something they're necessarily going to consume in that moment, but it has longevity. Those are the ones that get shared. Those are the ones that they send to their boss or their clients, their friends, So it is definitely a shift to being able to write that longer, like mini microblog type content, and doing that for episodic content, creating stories with that kind of content that people are like, oh, here's this week's edition of, whatever the storyline is. I've seen zoos. The San Diego Zoo is really good at doing that with episodic content. And they use these long form captions. And it's like a soap opera for penguins. And it literally, when the next post comes up, it's like you dive into it because you need to know what happened with the penguins. So there's all these ways to kind of draw people in with more of the storytelling and more of the resource based in that longer format.
Let's talk a little bit about objectives and the customer journey. I think a lot of times people just think of social media as one objective. We just want to get exposure. We want to create awareness. You're seeing more and more people that are selling product, that are capturing leads. So, how do we need to be thinking about the various state customer journey and not just like media so people can see it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously exposure is always going to be part of it. Like I said, reels are great for that exposure, but once someone finds your account, what are you doing with it? I actually love Instagram for B2B. I teach Instagram for B2B all the time because I think it's a very untapped potential. But you do want to think about whether it's stories or feed posts or reels. We want to be creating that content that is the evergreen, that is the, frequently asked questions, the myth busting. It's not just about fun. It's not just about dancing. It's not just about sales, right? We have to have that mix of content, the fun content, the educational content, things that get attention in the feed, and then your sales posts. But then you need to have a really good link in bio solution because, again, most things you do on Instagram, it's going to be click the link in the bio. And so I highly recommend that what most people do is create a dedicated landing page on your website. You're going to have that link go to a specific page. And on that page is going to be where you would normally refer people, whether that's to your blog post, your videos, your opt-in for your webinar, your opt-in for your ebook, whatever it is. You're putting 5 or 6 options on that landing page because now you own that traffic. So you can look at your Google Analytics. You can see where people from Instagram are going when they land on that page. And you can see, wow, a lot of people go for our blog. We should promote that more on Instagram. Or, hey, we got a lot of opt-ins during that campaign. That really worked well. Let's do that again. You can also retarget all that traffic with ads because if you've got your pixel on there for Meta, you can target all them with your Facebook and your Instagram ads. But it also just provides that good, clean house so that when someone comes from Instagram, clicks on that link, they're not landing on your homepage. They're not landing in that overwhelm of options of where they can go and what are they looking for. You're giving them that really simple menu, and that's more likely to drive those conversions in the direction you want them to go.
Absolutely. So talk a little bit about, you started to allude there, but talk a little bit about some of the tools. I mean, I get targeted for apps and, all kinds of things. And you see people that are doing, creative things, and using some, a tool set. I mean, in fact, that was one of the frustrating things about Instagram for so long. You pretty much only way you could do it is, on your iPhone or connected to your account. There's a really kind of creative environment now, isn't there, for producing Instagram content?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of external apps, obviously, for video editing, for photo editing, that sort of thing. But Instagram has always been a video and photo editing tool. Like, I would edit photos in Instagram, save to my camera roll, and not ever publish it to Instagram, just so I had that edited photo to
Right.
go put someplace else on social media. So they
Yeah,
have
they were
so
the
many
first one
inherent.
with the filters and stuff like
Yep.
that. Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah.
they already have all of these things. You don't really need third-party tools. Yes, there are a number of them out there. Even with Reels, Reels have gotten so much better with their in-app editing. For a long time, people were building Reels elsewhere and importing in. And
Right.
actually, when it comes to Instagram, I highly recommend you do as much in-app as possible, because the more you do in-app, the more Instagram recognizes that as original Instagram content. And they know that that content isn't being shared elsewhere. So it actually gets higher distribution. It actually gets more reach and publication when you've done your editing in app, whether that's adding a filter, adding music, adding stickers. So for the most part, I say do as much as you can in app rather than relying on external tools.
Would that be true of scheduled posting? So, like, for example, if you're scheduling stuff, all the schedulers now, Buffer, all
Yeah.
do that now. Would you be downgraded, so to speak, from an algorithm standpoint, by using an auto scheduler?
There's no penalty for using a scheduler. I rely heavily on Agorapulse. I would say 90% of my content on Instagram in the feed is scheduled through Agorapulse. Stories are always, raw and on, my own schedule. But for most of most of my feed posts, they're scheduled, and there's no negative impact like there used to be, back in the day. So
Right,
that's
right.
totally fine. But Instagram is currently testing that in-app scheduling, so they're going to allow you to schedule posts directly on
Mm.
Instagram, anyways. So that may
So that'll
eliminate
take
that
care of that.
need.
Yeah.
But the
Right.
scheduling tools are great because you do get the calendar grid. You can actually see when things are coming. You can kind of start to match up your feed. Those have a lot of added advantages that you wouldn't get, in app on Instagram.
Talk a little bit about the need, or the balance, I guess I should say, for production values. I'm seeing people doing 3 camera shoots. I mean, it's gotten just crazy. It used to just be arm holding my camera, right? And now it's just
Yeah.
gotten, TV production. So what does that dictate, the common user, if you will? What has that done for their needs?
I mean, honestly, I think it's overkill. I think that
Yeah.
if you work in a certain industry, if you are a, video based business, if that's what you do, or if you're some, massively successful influencer or brand that has the capacity to do a $10,000, video shoot for a 1 minute video, go for it. I'm not here to stop you. But for the average user, yeah, a simple, holding your smartphone just out in front of your face is perfectly fine. A webcam, to do a recording of a video and then editing it, all of those are perfectly fine. Most videos on Instagram are meant to be quick consumption. So putting
Right.
that level of, like you said, multi-camera and post edit and everything else, sure, it's great, but we're talking about a 38-second video. Like, we're not
Yeah. Yeah.
creating documentaries that are going to be hours in length. So for the most part, you keep it as simple and as affordable as you can so that you're not committing your life to video production.
Last question. What about consistency?
Mm.
You use the word committing. Do you have to really commit to a certain rhythm of posting, or you're going to lose people's interest?
I think, yes, consistency, absolutely. I tell people in general, and of course, there's no magic number, but if you're posting 3 to 5 times a week, that's typically an optimal goal. There are people who can only post once a week. That's fine.
Mhm.
If you can only post once every other week, that's okay. I just want you to be consistent. If you're going to do one post a week, every week, 52 weeks a year, great. If you're going to do 2 posts a week, every week, that's great. Just don't do 3 posts this week, 1 post next week, take 4 weeks off, come back and do 6 posts. That's where it gets overwhelming. It confuses the algorithm. It confuses your audience. So the consistency is key. Where we want to play a little bit more is with the types of content. So mixing in one reel and then doing a feed post. Don't go all reels all the time. Don't go all feed all the time. That's where you want to kind of play with it a little bit. Try some reels here, try some feed posts there, do story photos, story videos. You want to play with the different types of content and see what's really working, but we want to be consistent with how our actual overall posting schedule looks.
Awesome. Well, Jenn, I really appreciate you taking a few moments to stop by the Duct Tape Marketing Podcast. You want to tell people where I know Instagram Dummies 2.0 is available everywhere you can buy books, but you want to invite people to connect with you somewhere, find out more about your work?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm pretty much everywhere as Jenn's Trends, JENNS_TRENDS. That's my Instagram handle and pretty much every other handle. Website is jenstrends.com. That's 2 N's in Jenn. But feel free to hit up the website. You can find out pretty much everything else you need to know, whether it's my free Facebook group, my paid membership, my books, any of those resources are all available on the website.
Awesome. Well, again, and I appreciate you taking a few moments to stop by, and hopefully we'll run to you out there on the social media marketing world again. So I assume you probably will as well. And so that might be the next chance to bump into you.
That would be great. Look forward to it.